that's your concern," said Webb. He sighed. "I'll have cooperation from Fed enforcement if I can ID the guy for sure. How far that cooperation would go in a place like Stormland, abandoned by the Feds, was a cold unknown, but he wasn't going to tell Gusset that. He probably would have to get the suspect out of the ruined, half-drowned city all on his lonesome." "How you know Fed enforcement will even listen to you?" "Time comes, I can arrange it." Gusset gave him a sidelong look of suspicion. Webb gave out a grudging nod. "Yeah, fine. I used to be a U.S. Marshal, a while back." "You were one of those guys escorting prisoners and witnesses and stuff?" "It's not just that." Webb peered out the window. It was a little less murky out there as they climbed toward the surface. "Marshals also arrest fugitives. They do some investigation. I was a U.S. Marshal. Now I'm a freelance tracker." "I bet you got paid better as a cop. Why'd you quit?" "The polite way to answer that is, none of your fucking business, Gusset." "Touchy subject, Chief?" "We're moving up the slope toward the ramp," said the captain, her voice coming thinly from somewhere in the ceiling. "Make sure you're harnessed and just relax. Expect some turbulence." "Expect some turbulence," Webb muttered, thinking about Moira, the plane, the third thing on that short list. "Expect some turbulence" should be the motto of the whole fucking country, he thought. The amphasub was climbing more steeply, the deck tilting upward, and then, as it contacted the storm, the submerged boat jarred over and over, as if some kid was slapping at a bath toy in his tub. "Shit, that's hard on the stomach," Gusset said, clutching at a seat back. "I'd never get used to it." The amphibious vessel grudgingly ascended, its heavy-treaded wheels extruding to grip the old concrete boat ramp. The shaking eased, settling into a prolonged rumble. The amphasub rolled up into the open air, and the view through the porthole wasn't strikingly different up here. Lashed with spindrift and swirling mist, the air seemed almost as aquatic as the sea. They drove up onto the broken asphalt of a shattered freeway, grinding across a thick tidal deposit of acid-tolerant sea urchins, flattened barrel jellyfish, and black algae. The amphasub was headed toward the storm-beaten remains of Patriots Point, just across the mouth of Cooper River from downtown Charleston, South Carolina, in the heart of Stormland. Dripping with rotting jellyfish and glutinous seawater, the amphasub dropped Webb and Gusset on a dicey overpass. The slashing wet wind made them stagger as they stepped onto the cracked concrete. The amphasub rumbled off westward, widening the cracks in the overpass with its movements. It couldn't take them any closer to downtown Charleston. Too likely the roads would collapse into sinkholes under the heavy vehicle. The storm drove black clouds to race hysterically overhead. This tropical storm was ebbing. Another, bigger storm would follow on its heels. There was no end to the storms, just pauses in an endless chain of surges. Standing on the crumbling overpass with Gusset, blinking in the bulleting, intermittent rain, Webb could see downtown a good way off, on the other side of Charleston Harbor. The ruins scratched sharply across the charcoal sky. Clouds twined and boiled like chimney smoke behind the crumbling skyline. The weather was perpetually uproarious here, with Charleston in the center of the 400 miles of coastland situated in Stormland, just one of climate change's sore spots, one of civilization's open wounds in the era of extreme weather. Occasionally there was a lull in Stormland, but even the lull was stormy, stepped down just enough to make it possible for human beings to scramble in and out of shelter, if they were quick and lucky. Constructed in the 2020s, clusters of downtown towers and hulking office buildings were still standing, though their lowest floors were permanently flooded. Some reared up like decayed teeth, their light green Senecel blocks blotted with Stormland surface molds. Here and there were view windows made of transparent metal, but most windows facing recurrent hurricane gusts had flexed right out of their frames. About a third of the downtown towers were said to be spottily occupied, well above the waterline, but more squatters were a mile or so inland, where they had taken over surviving apartment housing, the deserted mansions, the old Coliseum, and a few still-standing shopping malls on higher ground.